voice, to see you smile, to sit and talk to you a while, to be together the same old way, that would be our greatest wish today. To hear you laugh, to hear you cry, or just a chance to say goodbye, to say the things we didn't say, that would be our greatest wish today. But all we can do is throw a flower on the water, look for the sun through the rain, lay a little frangipani gentle on the water, remember how we loved you. To comb your hair, to lace your shoes, buy some flowers, let you choose, a phone call when you're away, just to see if you're okay. To hear your voice, to see you smile, to sit and talk to you a while, to be together the same old way, that would be our greatest wish today. But all we can do is throw a flower on the water, look for the sun through the rain, lay a little frangipani gentle on the water, remember how we loved you. Remember how we loved you. All we can do is throw a flower on the water, look for the sun through the rain, lay a little frangipani gentle on the water, remember how we loved you. Remember how we loved you. But all we can do is throw a flower. Remember how we loved you. Look for the sun through the rain. Remember how we loved you. But all we can do is throw a flower on the water. Remember how we loved you. Remember how we loved you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jennifer Broadbent. On behalf of Martin's family, I welcome you here as we gather to celebrate his life, mourn his loss, and say goodbye. To begin today's service, I ask Dorothy to come forward to light a candle. We light this candle knowing that your light will always shine. We cherish the special place in our hearts that will always be reserved for you. We thank you for the gift your living brought to each of us. We will always love and remember you. As you are all aware, a fine gentleman has been lost to you. You may have known him as Martin, Dad, or Opar. I ask that you please feel free to be at one with your sorrow, your sadness, your grief and your memories, but I also ask you to feel the gladness, the happiness, the purpose and the serenity of a life so well lived. I thank you all for your presence here today as we commemorate with sorrow, but also with respect, joy and thankfulness, Martin's life. In many ways, death unites us all, for it demands that each one of us put aside our toil, our business and our pleasure to unite ourselves with everyone here today, fellow mourners who share in the common bond of love and respect for Martin. As with any funeral service, we gather to mourn a departed loved one, pay tribute to their achievements and their life, comfort one another and give our support to each other. We gather in support of Martin's family, his wife Dorothy, his children Trevor, Joe and Michelle, their partners Craig and Ray, and his adored grandchildren Jenna, Ebony, Judd and Max, their partners, and great-grandchildren Jordan, Kaya, Charlie, Jai, Amelia, Madison, Riley and Dante. His surviving siblings, Sin and Ad, extended family members and special friends. Our presence here today is to give our support to you all. After talking with Dorothy, I'm sure that Martin would not want you to grieve in hurt or pain today, but to think of the love that he has given, that he has received, and that he has shared. I'd like to ask Jenny to come forward, please, to read a poem chosen for today, Memories of the Heart.
Feel no guilt in laughter, he knows how much you care. Feel no sorrow in a smile that he's not here to share. You cannot grieve forever, he would not want you to. He'd hope that you would carry on the way you always do. So talk about the good times and the ways you showed you cared, the days you spent together and the happiness you shared. Let the memories surround you. A word someone may say will suddenly recapture a time, an hour, a day. That brings him back as clearly as though he were still here and fills you with the feelings that he is always near. For if you keep those memories, you will never be apart, and he will live forever, locked safe within your heart.
Thank you, Jenny. In the words of his family, Martin was a good-natured, fun-loving man with a warm heart and a caring nature. He was true to himself, and he would help anyone in times of need, and he valued the things that make up a person of good character: sincerity, integrity, fairness, and hard work. He was a loving husband, an untiring worker, a provider, a supportive father, and a loving and caring grandfather and great-grandfather. He took each of the roles in his life seriously, giving them the importance that they deserved. His unique strength, his caring, his understanding, and most importantly, his capacity for always being there when things needed to be done are things that his family and friends will always remember. I'd now like to ask Reg to come forward, please, who's going to share with us Martin's eulogy.
Thank you. Right, where do we go? Is it going to be? Okay, yep. There, yep. Okay, yep. I was asked to do the eulogy today and have to credit give Dorothy credit for the amount of words she's put in for Martin. I think it's ended up being a page per decade, but that's 60 years. It's a lot of memories. Here we go. Martin's eulogy will be shared amongst a few of us today. I will begin with the story of his life as told by Dorothy. Martinus was born in Holland in St. Unterrand to parents Wilhelmina and Johannes on the 20th of March 1937. One of 9 children, 8 boys and 1 girl. Martinus, when he came to Australia, shortened his name to Martin, and of course later to Dad and Opa. Martin went to primary school in St. Unterrand. Again, sorry. I had it down pat. Then he went on to tech school, learning his trade as a fitter and turner. During his childhood days, he and his siblings would often throw hot ashes on the banks of the lake near his home to smooth the ice. They would then run and jump on it and slide across the lake in their clogs. Martin began working at the Phillips factory as a fitter and turner before he decided to come and live in Australia in 1955. Martin's two brothers, Bill and John, had already made their move to Australia. When Martin first arrived in Australia, he stayed with his brother Bill and worked for him as a plumber's labourer. He eventually moved into a boarding house in Ringwood at this time, and he had begun driving trucks for a living. Martin met Dorothy in 1958 when she and her mother moved into the boarding house. Martin moved out of the boarding house for a while. Coincidental, that's He did move back, but by this time Dorothy and her mother had moved to her grandmother's home. Lucky for Martin, Dorothy still lived in Ringwood. Martin was quite smitten with Dorothy, and he would often be found waiting for her outside her work at the Speed Shoes. Are they still going? I don't know. Their relationship grew, and in 1960, on the 23rd of April, they were married at the Ringwood Presbyterian Church. They celebrated their 60th anniversary this year. 3 children were welcomed into the family: Trevor, Joe and Michelle. Martin and Dorothy moved around a lot, starting their life in Croydon before moving to Buxton to look after his brother Bill's farm. The stay on the farm with 3 little ones under 5 was very challenging, especially for Dorothy, as they were 2 k's from town with only 1 car, no electricity or a telephone. No electricity. Martin also worked at the sawmill in Marysville. They were there approximately 18 months before Bill sold the farm. The family moved to Mount Dandenong for approximately 1 year. It was at this point that Martin started working with his other brother John in Croydon. Then they moved to Ringwood for approximately 3 years. They went to Ferntree Gully for another 3 years. Then up to Swan Hill, where Martin began working for the council. The first part of their stay in Swan Hill was in a caravan on Dorothy's uncle's dairy farm, while Martin built their new home in Wurrunen North. Got that right? Wurrunen? Yeah, okay. 3 years later, they moved on again, this time around the corner to Beverford. They stayed there for 4 years before moving to Swan Hill. They were missing the quiet country life, so they moved back to the town of Naya, just near Swan Hill actually. After Martin had to give up work due to work injuries whilst living at Naya, the decision was made to purchase a caravan, and they got bitten by the travel bug. 7 years in Naya, another move to Woodend for 7 years. It was in Woodend that Martin started his career in bowls, which I noticed there. Oh, okay. For those who know him, he called it balls. They also met some great friends and would become their travelling buddies. For 7 years, they travelled to Kinka Beach in Queensland to enjoy the warmth. 7 years in Woodend, they moved again, this time down to Yarra Junction, but they kept enjoying travelling and, of course, the bowls. While living in Yarra Junction, Martin took Dorothy back to Holland to show her the town he grew up in and where he went to school. They stayed with Martin's sisters Sean and his brother At. During this trip, on his return from Holland, Martin had to have cardiac surgery requiring a stent. Martin and Dorothy decided that this was a good time to travel up north, up to the warmer weather, and to see the sides of Australia that they hadn't seen. 3 more overseas trips and back to Holland, with a visit to England, Ireland and Scotland. While in Holland, Martin's brother took them on a tour to Belgium, Austria and Germany. Another time they did a cruise on the Rhine up to Switzerland and then around Switzerland. Martin was a loving opa to his 4 grandchildren, Jenna and Ebony, Judd and Max, and an adoring great-grandfather to his 8 great-grandchildren. On their last overseas trip, they went to England to visit their grandson Max. Martin and Dorothy were thrilled to take him to Holland to show Max where Olpie had grown up. Max now lives in London with his wife Davina. Martin lived his life for his family. He always worked hard. He found it difficult when he had to give up work back in 1991 due to work injuries. Had 2 back operations were required. Martin continued to enjoy travelling. It got a bit too much with the caravan, so they sold that. And they began staying in cabins or units. Martin loved his fishing and his bowling. His bowling managed to acquire him several pennant trophies over the years. Martin joined the Warina Park Bowls Club in 2010. He loved his time at the club, making many friends. Martin was diagnosed in 2018 with prostate cancer. Then in 2019 he was diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome, also called MDS pre-leukemia. Sadly, this diagnosis curtailed a lot of Martin's activities, but the support he received during the tough time from neighbours and friends will be remembered for years by his grateful family. I now ask his granddaughter, Jenna and Ebony, to come forward to pay tribute to the Opa.
Opa was a kind man and he was a gentleman, and he always had so much love to give to his grandkids and great-grandkids. So many childhood memories involve holidays at Oma and Opa's house, whether it be cleaning the caravan so they could take us to Bright to the snow, or Opa getting the car bogged in the sand at Hatta because he thought we could make it, or something as simple as squeezing into the recliner with him and a warm Milo and just watching TV. There was a time when they lived in Naya and Opa was sitting down doing water painting with us, and we were watching him paint a tree with some grass around it. At the time I thought it was a great picture, and it wasn't until we got older and learnt about his colour blindness that we then realised the grass that he painted wasn't actually meant to be purple. We would often stir Opa about his colour blindness, but he never minded. He'll be greatly missed and forever loved. I'd like to read a short poem. God saw him getting tired, and a cure was not to be. So he put his arms around him and whispered, "Come to me." With tearful eyes we watched him suffer and saw him slowly fade away. Although we loved him dearly, we could not make him stay. A golden heart stopped beating, hard-working hands put to rest. God broke our hearts to prove to us he only takes the best.
I've actually got something to read for Mum, Opa's daughter Jo. I will take this special moment to turn my thoughts to Dad. Thank him for the home he gave and for all the things that we had. We think about the fleeting years gone too quick and gone for good. Dad will be remembered as Opa to all his grandchildren, and the grandchildren will remember him for his cheeky stirring of Oma while they were present to watch. They will remember Opa because they will never have another one to replace him in their hearts. I've got a short poem. Beyond the empty chair. Look beyond the empty chair to know a life well spent. Look beyond the solitude to the days of true content. Cherish in your broken heart each moment gladly shared, and feel the touch of memory beyond the empty chair.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask Michelle to come forward, please. She's going to read a letter from Max, who's in London. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am sadly unable to attend today's ceremony, but I would like to thank you all for being here to celebrate Opar's life. Anyone who knew Opar knew that he never took life too seriously and was always pulling pranks and cracking jokes, especially on Omar. I remember when he would hide some of Omar's teddy bears in different places, like on top of the curtain rods or on cupboards, where she could not reach them, and he would wait for her reaction while laughing mischievously. Although we will miss his smile, his pranks, his love, we take consolation in the good feelings of our memories. One of which I will never forget is when we went to the Netherlands in his hometown for a week. He introduced me to his brother and sister and showed me where his old house used to be. I loved walking around this town, imagining all the things he would have gotten up to. We stopped at a lake where he used to skate on in winter. He told me how he would always hit his feet against a rock to break his clogs because he hated wearing them. But eventually his dad ended up putting a metal strip across the top so he couldn't break them anymore. He would tell this story with a big smile on his face and would be sharing memories about his childhood throughout the trip. He was always so much fun to be around, and he loved to laugh and be a clown. He loved to make everyone happy, and that's why he was such a loving parent, grandparent, and great-grandparent. Goodbye, Opar. I will miss you tremendously. You taught me to be caring, kind to others, and not take myself too seriously. Your humour, kindness, and selflessness will continue to inspire me. I love you so much, Opar, until we meet again.
Thank you. I'd now like to ask a representative from the Warina Bowls Club to come forward, please. Trevor Prentice, is it? Terry Kirby. Thank you.
In 2010, can you hear me all right? Right? In 2010, Wangaratta Ladies Bowls Club underwent a transformation. They decided to admit men into play bowls, and they renamed themselves Warina Park. Now, guess who was the first man to join? You're right. When he walked in the gate with that beautiful, engaging smile, I got it on good advice that he had 42 girlfriends. And that high regard for Martin never faded during the 10 years that he was associated with the club. On the club honour board, you'll see in 2011 Martin was champion, male champion. 2015 he was runner-up to being champion. He was beaten by one shot in the final of the club championship. Had he won that, he would have gone on to play the regional champion of championships. So he was, even at that age, he was a good bowler. We always found Martin to be a fantastic club man. He was supported all our social activities, our tournaments, our events, working bees, meetings, fundraising. He just supported the club wholeheartedly. He was a very shrewd bowler. Obviously, he'd had a lot of experience. I played a lot of bowls with Martin where he was skipper, and often the first three people bowling before him would have have our team in such a horrible situation, you are ready to go home. Martin would go up and play his couple of shots and he would pull off some unreal shots and take the game. That was just him. He was also so cool, calm and collected. I had never seen him get annoyed in bowls. He was a fantastic guy to play with. At one stage, Martin's, this is going back probably 3 or 4 years ago now, his aches and pains and age were starting to catch up with him, and like a few of us, he succumbed or bought a bowling arm to save him bending down. But he was never happy with that. He never really got on top of it, and he never really felt that it was helping him as it should be, and he gave that away and just went back to putting up with the aches and pains and bending down himself. We played, Jim, Trevor and myself, we played a lot of over 60s bowls with Martin, and that involved travelling all over the region, all over the northeast, perhaps down as far as Mansfield, up Howlong, in all the places in between, and we had a fantastic time, a lot of fun. We had played with the ladies, we'd played a lot of pennant bowls, but the over 60s was more fun, it wasn't quite so serious, and we really enjoyed that. One thing we found came to light with Martin playing the over 60s, because we were travelling, sometimes Martin was driver, sometimes one of us were driving, and I gather it must have been an age-related thing, because when I look back on listening to the eulogy, Martin, he was obviously a good traveller. But we found him that Martin would get lost very easily. And because we would travel somewhere, we invariably wanted to come home another way, just to look at a different view of things, and Martin would be totally lost by the time we got back to Wing. In fact, one day we were playing in Swanpool, and we came back through Tatong, and it was pointed out to Martin that the hotel there would be a great place to take Dorothy for a meal. I don't know, Dorothy, did you ever get that? You did, that's great, because we were wondering whether he'd ever be able to find his way back. I think the last time I remember Martin at the club, I can't remember whether it was the 50th anniversary in September or the Christmas break-up, but it was one of those. He and Dorothy came, and Martin was there to support us. He was obviously very unwell, but he still spoke of getting his bowls out and coming out and joining us, and he was looking forward to doing that, he said, but we knew it wouldn't happen, but that was just typical of Martin. He was on the bright side of things right to the end. He'll be missed by all at Warina. We remember him as a shrewd bowler. He was a really good bowler, a warm friend, a great clubman, and a real gentleman, and a lovely, lovely person. Rest easy, Martin. Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to pause the service for a few minutes now for you to have some time to think about your relationship with Martin. This is a time for you to reflect on what he meant to you and how it was that he touched your lives. Use this time to remember a happy time shared with him, and for those of you who would like to, please use this time to say a silent prayer. These next few moments are yours.
The Dutchman's not the kind of man to keep his thumb jammed in the dam that holds his dreams in. But that's a secret only Margaret knows. When Amsterdam is golden In the morning, Margaret brings him breakfast. She believes him. He thinks the tulips bloom beneath the snow. He's mad as he can be, but Margaret only sees that sometimes she sees her unborn children in his eyes. Let us go to the banks of the ocean, where the walls rise above the Zuyder's Zee. Long ago, I used to be a young man, but dear Margaret remembers that for me. The Dutchman still wears wooden shoes. His cap and coat are patched with the love that Margaret sewed in. Sometimes he thinks he's still in Rotterdam. He watches tugboats down canals and calls out to them when he thinks he knows the captain. Till Margaret comes to take him home again, through the unforgiving streets that trip him though she holds his arm. Sometimes he thinks he's alone and calls her name. Let us go to the banks of the ocean, where the walls rise above the Zuyder's Zee. Long ago, I used to be a young man, but dear Margaret remembers that for me. The windmills whirl the winter in. She winds his muffler tighter, and they sit in the kitchen. Some tea with whiskey keeps away the dew. He sees her for a moment, calls her name. She makes his bed up, singing some old love song. She learned it when the song was very new. He hums a line or two, they hum together in the night. The Dutchman falls asleep, and Margaret blows the candlelight. Let us go to the banks of the ocean, where the walls rise above the Zuyder's Zee. Long ago, I used to be a young man, but dear Margaret remembers that for me.
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.
I'd like to share with you a poem chosen by the family, and it's called The Last Farewell. Dear friends, I go, but do not weep. I've lived my life so full, so deep. Throughout my life I gave my best. I earned my keep. I've earned my rest. I never tried to be great or grand. I tried to be a helping hand. If I helped in a team, if I helped on my own, I was more than repaid by the good friends I've known. And if I went the extra mile, I did it with pleasure. It was all worthwhile. If I brightened your path, then let it be a small contribution from my loved ones and me. But mostly I cherished the family I knew, in a bond never ending, so precious, so true. Now sadly I leave you and travel alone through the mystic veil to the great unknown, with such beautiful memories that forever will be the way I hope you'll remember me. Martin passed away peacefully at home. Being at home meant that his children, grandchildren and great-grandchildren could all come to see him to say their goodbyes. Dorothy is very grateful for the palliative care team from North East Health and Dr. Keenan for their care and support, not only of Martin, but also herself during the past few weeks. Their care enabled Martin to pass with peace, dignity and calm. Let Martin's life and his dying guide your own lives with hope, passion and a joy for living. Life is precious, as is our relationship with others. Take the time to be fully present with each other. Be gentle with yourselves. In times of heartache and grief, know that you can call upon your closest family and friends to be with you, to comfort you. And may you wake up in the mornings and give yourself permission to move forward, to feel free, to laugh again, and to love those around you. The conversations and the stories that you shared with Martin will remain with you for all time. His love will always be there. He has lived, and his life touched you all. May you remember Martin for the good things he did, for the times you shared, and for the man that he was. Talk about him often. Remember the love, conversations, and fun times that you shared. Your memories will keep him with you always, not just as a recollection, but as a guiding, vital presence. It was Martin's wish to be privately cremated, and he will be staying here in our care until he makes his final journey. Before I share the words of committal with you, I invite you to come forward in your own time to place a floral tribute in love and remembrance. In grief at your death, but in gratitude for your life and for the privilege of sharing it with you, we say goodbye. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose on earth, a time to be born and a time to die. Here in this last act in sorrow, with love and appreciation, we commit Martin Joseph Persons to the purifying elements, earth to end, dust to dust. His journey here on earth has ended and is beginning in another realm. With love, respect and admiration, we bid him farewell. Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. The love you shared with Martin will remain with you always. Whatever sadness you might experience through this time of change, may it move through you gently and with grace. May you feel the peace that is present within you always, beyond stories and memories, beyond pain and sadness. May you call upon family and friends and the support that is within the community that surrounds you. Ladies and gentlemen, our service here today has ended. I ask you to please stand as Martin's family leave the chapel. May peace be with you all.
Every night in my dreams, I see you, I feel you. That is how I know you. Go on. Far across the distance and spaces between us, you have come to show you. Go on. Near, far, wherever you are, I believe that the heart does go on. Once more, you open the door, and you're here in my heart, and my heart will go on and on. Love can touch us one time and last for a lifetime, and never let go till we're gone. Love was when I loved you one true time. I